I would want you to picture this. It's time for some snacks. You're standing in the cold glow of your fridge to take out a cup of yogurt that you intend to use. But as you pick it up and peel back the lid, you spot it. That tiny printed date. It says your yogurt expired 2 days ago. Suddenly your brain flips a switch. That yogurt which looked perfectly delicious 5 seconds ago now looks like a biohazard. Your pulse quickens. You start sniffing it like a bomb squad technician. Is it dangerous? Is it a slow-acting poison? Or is that date just a suggestion? If you've ever hesitated over a carton of milk or tossed a perfectly sealed box of crackers because of a printed number, you aren't alone. Every single year, we as a global society throw away billions of dollars worth of perfectly edible food. We are talking about mountains of bread, rivers of milk, and literal tons of canned goods, all sacrificed at the altar of a tiny, often arbitrary date. But here is the surprising truth that the food industry isn't exactly shouting from the rooftops. Most expiry dates are not what you think they are. They aren't death dates. They aren't even safety warnings in most cases. Today, we are uncovering the hidden architecture of the expiry date, where it came from, the secret science of how it's calculated, and why it quietly controls your life, your wallet, and your trash can. But before we continue, permit me welcome you to the channel, and yes, we know curiosity brought you here. This space satisfies that curiosity by exploring the strange, forgotten, misunderstood, and deeply human tales found in history, science, and the lives of real people. If this sounds like something you'd enjoy, then consider subscribing to the channel for regular videos that will always leave you nodding your head after watching. Now let's move on to the story. So, for most of human history, food didn't come with a manual. If you lived in a village 300 years ago and you wanted to know if the milk was still good, you didn't look for a label. You didn't consult a government website. You relied on the 3 most sophisticated biological sensors ever created: your nose, your eyes, and your tongue. This was a time of biological experience. If milk smelled bad, you wouldn't drink it unless you were making cheese. If bread had mold, you cut it off or threw it away. If meat smelled strange, you gave it to your dogs. It was a simple, natural system. But then the world changed. We moved from the farm to the city. We moved from the local butcher to the industrial supermarket. Suddenly, the person eating the food was hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles away from the person who produced it. As food started traveling long distances and sitting on shelves for weeks, the trust between the producer and the consumer broke down. How could you know if that tin of peaches from 3 states away was still good? In the early 20th century, as processed foods exploded in popularity, manufacturers realized they had a problem. They needed to guarantee consistent quality. If a customer bought a box of crackers and they were stale, that customer wouldn't blame the store, they'd blame the brand. As a result of this, expiry dates were introduced not originally as safety warnings, but as quality markers. They were a way for brands to protect their reputation. They wanted to make sure that when you bit into that cracker, it had the exact crunch they intended. However, that wasn't still enough. By the 1970s, consumer groups started demanding more transparency. They wanted to know how old the food was. But instead of a single, clear system, we got a confusing alphabet soup of labels that we are still drowning in today. This is where the confusion really begins. Most people use the word expired as a catch-all, but in the world of food labeling, words matter. There isn't just one type of date. There are 3, and they mean very different things. The very first one is best if used by /best before. This is the most common label, and most of us ignore it, costing us money. This date refers to the food's quality, not its safety. It's the maker's guarantee that the food will taste its absolute best until that specific day. What happens after that date? Your crackers might be a little less crunchy, or your juice might lose some of its bright color, but is it unsafe to eat? Almost certainly not. Secondly, we have use by. This one is the serious one. This is about safety. You'll see this on highly perishable items like fresh fish, raw chicken, or unpasteurized soft cheeses. After this date, the risk of harmful bacteria like Salmonella or Listeria begins to climb. This is the only date that should truly make you pause. Finally, we have sell by. This one isn't even for you as a consumer. This is a logistical tool for the store manager. It tells the retailer how long to display the product for sale so that it still has a reasonable shelf life once you get it home. If you buy a gallon of milk on its sell-by date, it's still good for at least another week in your fridge. So, when we say this food is expired, we are often mixing up these three meanings. We treat a best before on a box of pasta with the same fear we treat a use by on a piece of raw shrimp, and that mistake is costing us a fortune. At this point, you might assume that's the whole story, but not so soon. Let me shock you with this fact. In most countries, including the US, the government does not set these dates. There is no Department of Expiry testing every yogurt cup in a lab. They use something called accelerated shelf life testing. They put the food in a chamber, crank up the heat and humidity to simulate months of sitting on a shelf, and then they test it. They look for when the oils start to go slightly rancid or when the texture changes. But here's the kicker. Because companies are terrified of lawsuits, they choose conservative dates. If a lab test shows a can of soup is perfect for 4 years, the company might print best by 2 years, just to be safe. They want to ensure that even if you store it in a hot garage, it'll still be high quality when you open it. So, in essence, they aren't calculating the last safe day. They are calculating the guaranteed perfect day. To save money and reduce waste, you should become familiar with zombie foods. These are items that, when stored properly, can last almost indefinitely. Good examples include certain canned goods, dry staples like rice, pasta, and dried beans which contain very little water and honey. However, I don't want you to walk away from this video thinking you can simply eat anything, as there are absolutely times when that printed date acts as a genuine red flag. You should strictly adhere to those labels for deli meats, which are highly susceptible to Listeria, a resilient bacteria that can dangerously thrive even in the cold environment of your refrigerator. Similarly, soft cheeses like brie and camembert require extra caution. Unlike hard cheddar, their high moisture content makes them much more likely to harbor harmful mold and bacteria. Fresh seafood is another critical category to watch, as fish degrades at an incredibly fast rate, making it a risk that is simply not worth taking once the date has passed. Lastly, always respect the expiration on baby formula, which is the only product in the US with a federally regulated date. This is because vital nutrients physically break down over time, and infants truly need every milligram for their healthy development. This issue matters immensely because our collective anxiety over expiration dates is fueling a full-scale environmental and economic catastrophe. In the US alone, citizens discard roughly 40% of food supply, a staggering $161 billion loss every year, largely because consumers panic at the sight of a Best Buy label. However, when you toss a simple gallon of milk, you aren't just losing $4, you're discarding the thousands of gallons of water used to grow the grain for the cow, the fuel consumed during transport, and the massive amount of energy required for refrigeration. It is crucial to remember that a printed date is merely a guide, not a magical switch that transforms your food into a biohazard the moment the clock strikes midnight. To stop the cycle of waste, we need to reclaim the intuitive wisdom of our ancestors and learn to trust our biological sensors once again. For too long, we have outsourced our basic common sense to a tiny printer at a factory, inadvertently playing into the hands of manufacturers who profit when we prematurely toss and replace perfectly edible items. By treating the date as a mere suggestion and letting your senses be the final judge, you can outsmart the marketing and save yourself some serious cash. If this video changed the way you look at your pantry, give us a like and hit that subscribe button. Share this with that one friend who refuses to eat anything that's even 5 minutes past the date. You might just save them a fortune.